Okay, let's have a warm welcome for the real surfers, the one and only, the five and only, Beach Boys!
If everybody had an arm across the USA, then everybody be surfing like California, yeah. You'd see 'em wearing the band, Warachi Savage too, a bushy blonde hair, surfing USA.
I've just been talking to these guys about the Teammates release, and I gave them a little bit of background about how we got started and worked with Brad. And I also mentioned and showed to them the Fillet of Soul from 2017 that Omnivore also released. So that's kind of how I set it up. I told them about some, pulling together the Mike and Dean stuff and all the interesting things you found, like with the Hog Fat Cantina Singers and Loxley Hall. And I just hand it off to you at that point. You can talk about, the different buddies and friends and colleagues that you worked with through the years.
Well, we kind of learned early on that it was a team sport, making records, and a career. It took a lot of people to make it all work. And so the idea of the Teammates CD was to finally show how, at least audio-wise, how the team works, how it all worked, and how everybody had a different function to make it work, and that everybody needed to be high functioning in whatever they did, which included a lot of musicians that never got credit for anything. So I think that was kind of the direction we were going in for that Teammates thing. And I wasn't sure whether or not anybody would really be interested.
One of the things for me that I really enjoyed is also hearing a lot of the Mike and Dean songs that you guys did together in this collection. Talk about how you first met Mike and then how you came to start working with Mike Love on these recordings.
Well, the first time we played together in the early 60s, they were our backup band. And since we were full-time college students, we really didn't have time to put together a band, because 5 days a week we wouldn't be playing. So it was unfair to build a band and then just tell them we'll call you, once or twice a month or 3 times a month whenever we have a chance, or during summer. So once in a while, when a date was really important and it was a high profile date, we would just call our studio musician friends who ironically did not work in those days, did not work on weekends. So they had the weekend to, mow their lawns and stuff and wash their cars. But they always liked playing. And since they were studio guys, they really weren't getting any playing done in front of an audience. So they got a kick out of going on the road with us. But then when it's a local date and you don't have much of a budget, the buyer was, if they were hiring us, was always instructed to find a local band that was self-contained, that could learn our songs. And we only had like 4 songs at the time, 3 or 4. Then the rest, you were just doing classics, right? Doing, Chuck Berry and anything, most anything that any other garage band would do. So they only had to learn like 3 songs. Those were the only, real hits that we had, which was more than they had, to think of it. So the buyer would have to hire them, give them our records so that they could listen to them and try and recreate them. And we would show up maybe an hour and a half earlier than the show and sit with the band. And this time it was actually, of course, it was the Beach Boys. So that's kind of how we met. They were our backup band. And it was obviously really, really fun because they were a vocal band. We always wanted to be in a vocal band. And here's this vocal band that likes to sing background vocals. And we said, man, this is the band we always wanted to be in. And it just went from there.
I got to say, in the 60s, the California sound and the beautiful girls, come on. You guys had it made. It's like a dream that doesn't come again, you know, like pure innocence and playing music that just takes over the world. It brings so much happiness. That music in 2023, you know, this is what makes it. You're such a rock and roll legend. You got no idea. The cars, the sound, the look, the girls. I mean, I'm a baby boomer and I didn't live that. It's just amazing. And you had so much effect on Australian culture, especially the beach culture, because we had no identity. So the Australians got their identity from watching the beach songs and the videos.
Well, that was the whole idea, I think. Yeah. Yeah, it really worked very well. I don't regret any of it. I wouldn't do anything differently. And it just really worked. And Jan and I were friends. And I don't even remember having any arguments. Didn't have it. We would have disagreements maybe on, you know, just musical issues. But other than that, we got along fine. We loved our managers. We loved all the studio guys. Everybody got along and loved working together.
Two girls for every boy. I bought a 34 wagon and we call it a Woody. Surf City, here we come. You know it's not very cherry, it's an oldie but a goodie. Surf City, here we come. Well, it ain't got a backseat or a rear window, but it still gets me where I wanna go. You know, we're going to Surf City 'cause it's 2 to 1. You know, we're going to Surf City, gonna have some fun. You know, we're going to Surf City 'cause it's 2 to 1. You know, we're going to Surf City, gonna have some fun now. Two girls for every boy. They say they never roll the streets up 'cause there's always something going. Surf City, here we come. You know they're either out surfing or they got a party throwing. Surf City, here we come. Yeah, there's two swinging honey for every guy, and all you gotta do is just blink your eye. And I'm going to Surf City, gonna have some fun now. Going to Surf City 'cause it's 2 to 1. You know we're going to Surf City, gonna have some fun. You know we're going to Surf City 'cause it's 2 to 1 now. Two girls for every boy. And if my Woody breaks down on me somewhere in the surf room, Surf City, here we come. I'll strap a board to my back and hitch a ride in my wetsuit. Surf City, here we come. And when I get to Surf City, I'll be shooting the girl and checking out the parties for a surfer girl. And I'm going to Surf City 'cause it's 2 to 1. You know we're going to Surf City, gonna have some fun. You know we're going to Surf City 'cause it's 2 to 1. You know we're going to Surf City, gonna have some fun now. Two girls for every, two girls for every
The skateboards were unbelievable. You guys were riding skateboards before anyone, and that became a fad in America and in Australia because of you guys. It's fact. I know. I saw it.
And
that's
guess
right.
what? They're still around. Skateboards still around. Now they're even in the Olympics, for God's sake. You know, something that they thought would just be around for one summer or 2 summers is still here 50 years later.
Plastic, a neat thing is when Jan and Dean recorded Sidewalk Surfing back at that time, there was no skateboard sound effects in the sound effect library. So they had to create their own skateboard sound effect. Dean, tell them about that.
Well, exactly. We went to the library that was usually at the studio, facility, and golly, there's no sound effect for skateboarding, so we were forced to. Luckily, we just happened to carry them around in our cars for kicks anyway. Go out to the car, get the skateboard, tell the engineer, get a long cord and see if we can go out on the sidewalk right on Sunset, and we'll skate right by the microphone. Seemed perfectly logical to us. It's some noise, and you got a microphone, and you should be able to do it. And it actually worked perfectly. It really probably shouldn't have, but we had very talented engineers that could figure stuff out like that, and they were part of the team too.
Well, you pulled the skateboard out of the guitar case on the Tammy show.
That's right.
Yeah, well, why not?
That's what I love about you guys. You just skated anywhere, and it's like the scene. I mean, in my generation, it wasn't as cool as you guys. Yeah, you guys lived it. You lived the dream. Pioneers of the surf sound and video. You guys are that great. I told you. It's like, to me, it's mind-boggling how you've brought this. Everything's coming now in 2023. It's coming all around again for you, Dean. I've got to tell you.
And one of the things I've always liked about Jan and Dean is that they also weren't afraid to be funny. Their humor it's them. And having met Dean myself a couple of times, that's Dean's humor, and that was Jan's humor. And Dean, we've had a lot of conversations before about the Marx Brothers, and talk about the things like the Marx Brothers, Laurel and Hardy, those things that you loved, and bringing those into these records and recordings.
It wasn't planned at all. It just organically happened. We enjoyed being in the studio, so it wasn't work to us. It was really fun, and have your friends around you, the talented friends that also help you create this art. If you're happy, you're then always kind of thinking of things that make you happy, and a good laugh was always something that was very important. We did it all through high school, so why not incorporate it in? We were just reflecting our own lives. That I think that's what made those songs from that era, especially about the Southern California surf culture and or the car culture. All of that was fun. So it was a world of fun. And we thought, we're having fun. We're not protesting anything. We hardly know that much about life anyway. So we weren't even into particularly like the, I guess they were called teen idol guys, Frankie and Fabian and those guys. They were singing about romance and getting married and all that stuff. That was the last thing we were thinking about. And even if we did think about it, we didn't really know much about it, not enough to write a song about it particularly. So we were in our own little world doing what we enjoyed doing, and hope that the listeners were going to be happy with that.
Well, I got to say, little old lady from Pasadena, who's got a title like that, talking about a grandma driving a hot rod. I mean, that's gold. The other one, Surf City, come on. These songs make me jump out of my chair. It's not like you sit there and they're boring. You guys are on the crest of the wave when you put those songs out.
The little old lady from Pasadena has a pretty little flower bed of white gardenias, but parked in a rickety old garage is a brand new shiny red superstar car. And everybody's saying that there's nobody meaner than the
what it was like recording the songs, and when they were released, what sort of reaction did you get? You guys must have been like on cloud nine.
Yeah. Obviously you're happy that somebody appreciates what you did. And so Lou Adler tells me that he was our manager along with Herb Alpert. Lou was our manager pretty much from the start. And it's a journey for him too, as well, of course. And so you make the record, you think it sounds pretty good. You hope people will react to it, and it comes out. And then you hear it on the radio. And the first time I actually heard our recording on the radio, I almost threw up. I think it just, I really was kind of speechless, and it was really surreal because I've listened to everybody, all the people I enjoyed musically on the radio, and you think of it kind of one-dimensionally. Now all of a sudden, that's my vocal on there, and my buddy Jan's vocal, and holy cow. So for the moment, and you try and tell yourself, if I just hear it once, I'm going to be happy. I'm going to be really happy. And I don't care what happens after that. Well, you hear it once and you go, only if I could hear it twice, then it's not a fluke, and it's just twice. Then that makes it real, because, the programmer has actually liked it well enough to play it 2 times. Well, of course, that goes into 4 and 8 times. So, okay, it's a battle of the bands at this one radio station. So at the end of each broadcast, the listeners would call in, vote for their favorite song. Well, we won it 2 or 3 nights in a row. And then you go, okay, just if it's 4 nights, it would really be great. That would really prove, or the whole week, let's say, just 1 week. That's all we care about. Of course, it goes for a week, and then you want 2 weeks. Then it goes on the charts, and you go, my God, here's a piece of paper with our names on it and the chart listing. It's like, started out as number 30 or something. And then you go, that's all I care about. Now that it's in writing, now I have something tangible to show somebody and go, we're actually in the business now, because my God, we got a record on the charts. Well, then you go, well, if it falls right off, that would be too bad. Okay, if it just if the next week it's still on the charts, okay, and it moves up to 20. 20? Yeah, man. Well, what about up to 10? I mean, if you're in the top 10, now it's just not a fluke. Or just something that's regional hit. There's other radio stations now playing it. So it gets up to 10, then it gets up to 5, then it hits. Lou calls me up and said, "Guess what? What? It's number 1 next week." He reminded me. He said, "Your first reaction was, isn't it going too fast?" Because I've enjoyed it for 4 weeks now, and then I realized it hits number 1. What direction is it going to go in next? Back down. And then you don't hear it ever again, And so I really wanted to hold on to this, and now it got up there too quickly, and now the only direction it can go is back to where it came from.
Dean, you've actually been your design work is I've followed your work, as long as I've followed your music, including you designed the cover for the package that David Beard put together for the Beach Boys in 2016. Talk about your design work and where the ideas for the record. Does the music suggest the visuals, or does the visuals for these records come from somewhere else?
In the beginning, most of the time, the visuals came from the art department, who weren't even aware of what the music was about, nor did they care. So it was mostly based on the art department and or the graphic designer to come up with something. I always thought that was nutty. And I felt as though if you were a graphic designer, you should be thinking about, as you just said, either the music, and just as important the music is the brand. You know, it was what I said, it's our job as an art director to promote the band or the person or the single artist, male or female. That our job is not to create something beautiful or eclectic. It's really to promote this person who's invested, I don't know, maybe years learning their craft, learning music, taking lessons, and writing music. I mean, writing music takes a lot of time. So if you're putting out an album, especially, you got 12 songs that maybe you wrote part of them or most of them or collaborated with somebody. And it's a lot of effort. And for just a package designer to go, well, I want to put some sort of, flying rhinoceros on there. And I think that's a good idea. It might be visually very interesting, but it doesn't do the music artist. And there were a lot of designers like that never even asked about the person they were doing the graphics for and or the music. They just had that 12 by 12 surface there that they were going to fill up with something that pleased them. So it's kind of it's a mixed thing, because it does have to be creative, but you can't over create so much that you lose sight of the actual recording artist and their music. Like for instance, I got a Grammy Award for a cover that should never have been nominated, which just showed that they were in the early 70s. They were still thinking about something that needed to be outrageous or funky or something that is beautiful piece of art. And the cover that the concept was good. And if it were for something else, the group was called Pollution. So it's the word of pollution that the people at the record company wanted me to get into. And I'm going, well, there's a group behind this, so let's see them. I mean, they're the ones you're trying to sell, and the music is part of the total package. And they just wanted to go for something that talked about pollution. So I did. They paid me for it, and I tried to talk them out of it. And then they told me, see, you got a Grammy for this. I said, I shouldn't have gotten a Grammy. And by the way, how many records did you sell? Well, 10, but and the poor group is sitting there kind of going, we put our effort into doing 12 songs on this thing. Nobody knows what we look like. I did put those pictures inside, but since nobody bought it, nobody or very few people bought it, and nobody related to the actual group nor their music. So total waste of time.
Dean does keep his Grammy that he won for that album in a very specific place.
Where's that? Next to his surfboard?
No, next to a toilet.
Okay.
Honestly, it's
I've seen it. I can vouch.
Sits on the back of the toilet. And my daughters, when they were younger, decided it would be fun for them to practice, because they were going to be singers too, you see. And so they were practicing their acceptance award for a Grammy. And they used a real Grammy to be able to do this. So they went into it's actually a guest bathroom, and they grabbed the Grammy and they came out and into their playroom, and they may have had a little video camera. I don't remember. And they practiced their speeches of accepting this Grammy. And of course, that got boring after about 10 minutes, and they sat it down on the couch in back of them and then played some soccer, and then got tired from that and decided to sit down on the couch and rest a bit. And they sat on the Grammy and broke it.
Being a great Dean and Jan fan, you guys are the greatest, but I want to ask you, being a baby boomer, I also grew up with the Monkees. What did you think of the Monkees in 66?
I thought they were damn lucky to have a television show. I mean, if you do television and you have, like Ricky Nelson, if you're on TV once a week, you get double or triple the amount of sales that you get if you weren't on TV once a week. So they were very blessed to have a platform. I mean, a really great platform. And that was in the days also when you only had 3 networks. So minimally, you're going to have 20 million to maybe up to 40 million people watching once a week. That's a lot of eyeballs on, and so audio, hearing what they're doing in their music. So they were very, very lucky indeed. The songs to me were formula, and that was no fault of theirs particularly. We had a somewhat of a relationship with the same publishing company, and they were no help at all to us. And when we found Brian Wilson, we didn't need them any longer. And the publishing company was just in it for the money. They didn't care about the art. They didn't care about actually the music. So they were tied down to music that I think in the end they even got tired of it. Just the formula stuff.
And Dean, I want you to tell you, every day you wake up, the world loves you, right?
Thank you. I really appreciate it. That's great to hear 50 years down the line.
Thank you. Go for it, David.
All right. Be sure to pick up the Teammates from Omnivore Recordings. And while you're shopping at the Omnivore website, you can just find it on Google or just look it up. Also go and check out Jan and Dean, Filet of Soul, The Rejected Masters. Dean was talking about his friendship with Jan, and if you really want to listen to the two of them having a good time together, the Filet of Soul release will give you lots of that. And that's it.